Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to 11th Hour. Tonight, we are not just discussing a news headline. We are delving into a story that affects your wallet, your future, and the very stability of the world order. Today is February 18th, 2026, and the drums of war between the United States and Iran are beating louder than ever. But behind the political rhetoric and military posturing, a silent, massive shift is occurring in the financial world. The world's wealthiest individuals, the billionaires who often seem to know which way the wind will blow, are making moves. They are quietly preparing for a storm, and what they are doing with their money tells a story that every ordinary person needs to understand. This isn't just about geopolitics, it's about a financial game where the rules are written by the powerful. You must be wondering, what is this big secret? The secret lies in the actions, not the words, of the super rich. For weeks, while the world has been distracted by President Trump's aggressive stance and the escalating tensions in the Middle East following US airstrikes on Iran, a pattern has emerged. Major billionaires are pulling their money out of the stock market. They are cashing out their positions, converting vast paper fortunes into liquid assets. This isn't a random panic. It's a coordinated, strategic retreat. They see something coming that most of us only hear about in news bulletins. Their actions suggest they believe the risk of a full-blown conflict is no longer a possibility, but a probability, and they are positioning themselves not just to survive the fallout, but to profit from it. This behavior is a critical warning sign for the global economy. When the smart money starts to leave the table, it's usually because they know the game is about to turn ugly. Think of it like this. If you see experienced sailors bringing their boats into the harbor while the sun is still shining, you don't question them. You prepare for a hurricane. These financial titans, with their armies of analysts and their direct lines to the corridors of power, have seen the dark clouds gathering. Their mass exodus from stocks is a vote of no confidence in the market's ability to withstand the shock of a major war. They are signaling that the era of stability is over, and an era of chaos is about to begin. Why should this matter to you, an ordinary citizen living thousands of miles away? Because the global financial system is interconnected. A stock market crash in New York or London doesn't stay there, it sends shockwaves across the entire world, hitting pension funds, savings accounts, and the value of local currencies. The moves these billionaires are making today are a precursor to the economic pain that could be felt by millions if not billions tomorrow. They are securing their own financial lifeboats, while the rest of the passengers on this global ship are being told to remain calm. Tonight, we will lift the curtain and show you exactly where their money is going and what it means for all of us. So, where is all this money going? It's not simply being stuffed under mattresses. The first step in the billionaire playbook for a crisis is de-risking. This means selling off volatile assets like technology stocks or shares in companies that depend on consumer spending. In recent weeks, we've seen a massive sell-off in the broader market, a trend initiated by these large-scale investors. They are closing their positions and converting their gains into cash. But holding on to cash is only a temporary measure. The real strategy lies in what they do next. They are moving this capital from the uncertainty of the general stock market into specific sectors that are historically known to perform well during times of global instability and conflict. This isn't a gamble, it's a calculated strategy based on historical precedent. These investors are not just protecting their wealth, they are repositioning it for growth in a world upended by war. Their logic is simple and brutal. If the world is heading towards chaos, invest in the instruments of chaos and the traditional shields against it. This leads them to three primary destinations for their billions. The first is a massive shift into commodities that skyrocket during crises. The second is an investment in the very companies that will supply the tools for the anticipated conflict. And finally, some are even withdrawing huge sums of physical cash, fearing that a major war could involve cyber attacks that cripple the banking system itself. Let's look at the specifics. The first destination is oil. A war involving Iran, a major oil producer situated near the critical Strait of Hormuz, would almost certainly disrupt global oil supplies. Any disruption, or even the threat of one, sends oil prices soaring. Billionaires are buying up oil futures and investing in energy companies, betting that the price per barrel will skyrocket the moment the first shots are fired. This is a classic war profiteering move. They anticipate that global economies will suffer from high energy costs, but their direct investment in the commodity itself will yield enormous profits, more than compensating for their losses elsewhere. They are betting on a global crisis to fuel their financial gains. The second, and perhaps more cynical, move is the massive flow of capital into the defense sector. Shares in arms manufacturers, aerospace companies, and military technology firms are being snapped up at an unprecedented rate. These investors know that war is a business. A conflict with Iran would mean massive government contracts for missiles, drones, surveillance technology, and all manner of military hardware. By buying stocks in companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman, they are positioning themselves to directly profit from the expansion of war. Every missile fired and every defense budget increased translates directly into higher share prices and bigger dividends for them. It is a grim calculation where global conflict equals corporate profit. Now, let's break down this playbook further. Besides oil and defense stocks, the third pillar of this crisis investing strategy is gold. For thousands of years, gold has been the ultimate safe haven asset. When currencies devalue, stock markets crash, and nations go to war, gold holds its value. It is the financial world's ultimate insurance policy. Billionaires are currently buying gold in massive quantities, both in physical form and through financial instruments. This rush into gold is not just about preserving wealth, it's also a speculative bet. They anticipate that as fear grips the global markets, smaller investors and even central banks will follow their lead, driving the price of gold to record highs. They get in early and profit from the widespread panic that follows. The anticipated market reaction to a full-scale war is brutally predictable, and these billionaires are positioning themselves on the right side of every trade. Let's paint a picture. If war breaks out tomorrow, we can expect an immediate and sharp crash in the general stock market. Your 401k, your pension fund, your mutual fund investments, all would likely see a significant drop in value. The airline industry would be hit particularly hard. With airspace closures over the Middle East, skyrocketing fuel costs, and a global decline in travel due to fear and economic uncertainty, airline stocks are expected to plummet. The billionaires who are selling their stocks now are avoiding this crash, while some may even be shorting these stocks, a strategy where they profit from the decline in prices. In stark contrast, the assets they have been accumulating are poised to surge. The price of oil could easily double or even triple, depending on the scale of the conflict. This would create a massive energy crisis for the world, but a windfall for those who invested in oil futures. The price of gold would likely surge as investors flee from paper assets to the perceived safety of precious metals. And, as we've discussed, the defense sector would be the only part of the stock market to see a powerful rally. The very companies building the weapons of war would become the most profitable investments on Wall Street. This creates a perverse incentive structure, where the most financially rewarding outcome for these investors is the most destructive outcome for the world. We have seen this playbook run before. During the 2020 market crash, triggered by global lockdowns, many ordinary people lost their jobs and savings. But what did the billionaires do? They used their vast cash reserves to buy up stocks, real estate, and other assets at rock-bottom prices. When governments pumped trillions into the economy to avert a total collapse, these assets rebounded, and the wealth of the super-rich exploded. They turned a global health crisis into one of the greatest wealth-generating opportunities in history. The strategy for a potential war with Iran is no different. Exit before the crash, profit from the chaos, and then use their accumulated cash to buy up the wreckage at a discount when peace talks eventually begin. The tragic reality of war is that it impacts different classes of society in vastly different ways. For the average person, war is an unmitigated disaster. It brings economic hardship, personal loss, and a future shrouded in uncertainty. If a full-scale conflict with Iran erupts, ordinary citizens will pay the price in multiple ways. The surge in oil prices will translate directly to higher costs at the gas pump, increased electricity bills, and a rise in the price of virtually all goods as transportation costs go up. This inflation will eat away at savings and reduce the purchasing power of salaries that are not keeping pace. Families will have to make difficult choices between heating their homes, feeding their children, and paying for other necessities. Furthermore, a war-induced market crash would devastate the retirement savings of millions. People who have diligently contributed to their pension funds and 401(k)s for decades could see a significant portion of their nest egg wiped out in a matter of weeks. For those nearing retirement, the consequences could be catastrophic, forcing them to work for many more years or face a future of financial insecurity. Young people would face a bleak job market as companies, squeezed by high energy costs and economic uncertainty, freeze hiring or resort to layoffs. The dream of home ownership, financial stability, and a prosperous future would recede for an entire generation, sacrificed at the altar of geopolitical conflict. Now, let's contrast this with the experience of the billionaires who have strategically positioned themselves for this exact scenario. While the common person is paying more for fuel, the billionaire who invested in oil futures is reaping billions in profits. While the average family's savings are evaporating in a market crash, the billionaire who moved their money into gold is watching their wealth grow as the price of the precious metal soars. While businesses are laying off workers, the billionaire who bought defense stocks is profiting directly from government contracts funded by taxpayer money, the very same taxpayers who are losing their jobs and savings. This is the cruel paradox of modern conflict. In essence, war acts as a massive wealth transfer mechanism, moving money from the pockets of the middle and working classes into the coffers of a tiny financial elite. The billionaires are not just insulated from the negative consequences of war, they have created a system where they financially benefit from it. They have the capital and the connections to place their bets before the crisis begins, and they profit from the ensuing chaos. For them, war is not a human tragedy, it is a market opportunity. They are playing a different game with different rules, and they almost always win, while the average person is left to bear the cost, both financially and, all too often, in human lives. So, how do these billionaires seem to know what's coming? Is it just brilliant analysis, or is something else at play? The answer lies in the deep, often shadowy connection between immense wealth and political power. The reality is that major policy decisions, especially those concerning war and peace, are rarely made in a vacuum. They are heavily influenced by powerful financial interests who stand to gain or lose billions based on the outcome. Billionaires don't just react to the news, they often have a hand in shaping it. They fund political campaigns, sponsor influential think tanks, and have direct access to the highest levels of government. This access gives them invaluable insight, and sometimes advanced knowledge of policy shifts. Consider the current situation. The decision by President Donald Trump's administration to launch airstrikes against Iran did not happen overnight. It was preceded by years of lobbying and public advocacy from certain influential figures. For example, prominent billionaire hedge fund managers like Bill Ackman were publicly calling for military action against Iran as far back as mid-2025, even when US intelligence found no evidence of an active nuclear weapons program. These are not just casual opinions. These are individuals who donate millions to political campaigns, supporting figures across the political spectrum who align with their hawkish views. When they speak, politicians listen. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. Billionaires who have invested in defense and oil have a vested financial interest in seeing a conflict escalate. They can use their wealth to fund pro-war politicians and media campaigns that shape public opinion and pressure the government towards military intervention. Figures like Michael Bloomberg have also supported hawkish policies and donated millions to political allies. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It is the documented reality of how money influences politics. The decisions made in the Oval Office are often a reflection of the interests of those who helped put the president there. The immense power wielded by individuals like Elon Musk, whose wealth dwarfs the GDP of many nations, shows how concentrated financial power can rival the power of states. This information asymmetry gives them an almost unbeatable edge. If you knew with a high degree of certainty that the government was about to take an action that would crash the market, wouldn't you sell your stocks? For this elite club, that's not a hypothetical question. Their proximity to power gives them a clearer picture of the future, allowing them to time their market moves to perfection. They sell at the top, just before the crisis they helped fuel begins, and they are ready with cash to buy at the bottom, just as the peace talks they will inevitably support, once their profits are secured, get underway. This is the ultimate insider trading, played out on a global stage with devastating consequences. So, after all this analysis, after following the money and connecting the dots between Wall Street and Washington, we arrive at a simple, sobering conclusion. What is the final result for the common person? When the dust settles, who truly benefits from this cycle of conflict, and who is left to pay the bill? The answer is as clear as it is unjust. The primary beneficiaries of this potential war between the US and Iran will be a very small group of ultra-wealthy individuals and the corporations they control. They are the ones who will profit from the surge in oil prices, the boom in defense spending, and the volatility of financial markets. For them, war is the most profitable business of all. The price, however, is paid by everyone else. It is paid by the ordinary families who see their cost of living rise dramatically. It is paid by the workers who lose their jobs as the economy falters. It is paid by the savers and pensioners who watch their life savings diminish overnight. It is paid by the taxpayers whose money is diverted from healthcare, education, and infrastructure to fund a multi-trillion-dollar war machine that enriches a select few. And, most tragically, the ultimate price is paid by the soldiers sent to fight and the innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. Their lives and livelihoods are the externalities in the cold, hard calculus of war profiteering. The narrative we are sold is one of patriotism, national security, and strategic necessity. But behind that narrative is a financial ledger that tells a different story. It is a story of calculated investments and engineered outcomes, where political decisions are influenced by those who stand to make a fortune from the chaos that follows. The interests of billionaire investors and defense contractors become intertwined with the national interest, creating a powerful momentum towards conflict. They have mastered the art of privatizing the profits of war while socializing the costs and the losses across the entire population. It is a game that has been played for centuries, and they have only gotten better at it. So, as you watch the news and hear the powerful arguments for war, I urge you to ask yourself a simple question. Cui bono? Who benefits? The answer will not be found in the passionate speeches of politicians or the grand statements of national honor. It will be found by following the money. The real winners are not the nations involved, but the elite few who have positioned themselves to profit from destruction. The real losers are the ordinary people, who are always the ones to pay the price in blood, tears, and treasure. I leave you with this thought tonight. Please share your opinions in the comments below. What do you think? Allah Hafiz.